If you could just take your seats, we're going to get the program started. Welcome to the Labor Day Windsor Essex Liberal Barbecue being held here at the Vaughan Club in Windsor, Ontario. Hey guys. I'm pleased to introduce the following people who are the riding presidents for both the federal and provincial ridings of the area. Marco Antonuso, who is the Federal Essex Liberal Association riding president. G1 Gill from Windsor Tecumseh Federal. Walter Bendinger from the Provincial Windsor Tecumseh Association. David Sundin, David Disaster from Windsor West, and Sammy Malcolm from the Windsor West Provincial Association. My name is Brian Payne. I'm the president of the Provincial Essex Association. We've got a couple of guest speakers for you today. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Jason Duplin here, who is going to introduce our first speaker, Adam Vaughan.
First, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out today. Second, on behalf of Crystal Melange and Teresa Bruza, who unfortunately couldn't make it tonight, she's moving Anthony, her and John are moving Anthony into his university life in Toronto. I'd like to thank all the volunteers that helped us out during the provincial election campaign. The amount of effort that I saw from, like in Windsor Tecumseh, knocking on doors, dropping literature, canvassing with us, and the amount of effort that I saw the Fossil campaign headquarters that Teresa had, it was impressive. We're going to need that same effort going forward next year. We have a very big election coming up. We have 3 seats that we can turn liberal and hopefully will form in the majority government that we need in this country. Thank you to everybody that knocked on the doors, that handed in the signs, that took the signs out the day after election day, which isn't the most fun, but it needs to be done. I'd like to introduce Adam Vaughan, the MP from Trinity Spadina. He was first elected in 2006 in Ward 20 in Toronto, and recently won the by-election to take a seat from the NDP. And we'll be doing that over and over next election. Prior to his career in politics, he was a journalist for CBC and CBLT. And I'd like to introduce Adam Vaughan.
Thank you very much, and thanks to Jeff Atkins who picked me up at the airport today and gave the tour of Windsor, but also thanks to the riding presidents and some of the candidates that are seeking nomination for a bit of a briefing on some of the challenges that you're dealing with here in Windsor, and I'll speak about that a bit later, but I have to, as a Torontonian, first and foremost apologize for the damage we've done to the national reputation of the country with our mayor. Senate Council, I can tell you that there are some good things you can say about him. As a member of the Conservative Party, he's still one of the most ethical Conservatives I've ever met. He doesn't have much competition there. But you always to be nice about your opponents, and so I'm trying. Within days of being elected, I was the subject of 2 Conservative fundraising letters. One for a stance on a more rational approach to gun control, which I advocated as a city councillor. We've seen a lot of damage done by guns in urban settings, and the long gun may be necessary in some rural communities, and certainly it is. I know my sister lives in rural BC, and you need to deal with the bears when you're in a logging camp. But we've had damage done to our cities with guns, and speaking up for strong gun control and not wearing no compromise t-shirts with assault rifles when you administer justice may make you the subject of an attack letter. Let me tell you that the Liberal Party's stance on gun control is a good one, it's a proud one, it's the right one. And I'm proud to have been attacked already. The second one I was attacked for was a Toronto Sun newspaper article. The Conservatives are so bad at research, they even choose bad research to do their research. It's quite phenomenal. But what I can tell you is that I wouldn't be standing here today if it hadn't been for the hard work of riding associations right across the country. I'm a member of the Liberal Party. As a city councillor, I hadn't joined any political parties, and as a journalist, I was, of course, forbidden from showing party colours, even though my parents were lifelong Liberals, and no one seemed to quite catch that in the mind or but nonetheless, when I walked into the party, and when I chose to run and run on Justin's team, one of the things that was delivered very quickly to the campaign office was resources from right across the country. Some of them were the interns and the staffers that on their part-time and on their off-duty time came down from Queen's Park and from Ottawa to volunteer to secure a seat. Some of it was Liberalist and resources that had been created through your effort, day in, day out, month in, month out, in between elections, not just during elections. And there were phone banks set up right across the country, which also provided extraordinary support in a tight race. And one of the things I've asked to talk about today is how to beat the NDP. I understand there's a bit of a challenge down here in Windsor. And the good news is they can be beaten. The better news is their machine is not really a machine of NDP origin. It's a machine of activists looking to get something done. And those people want politicians who are effective, not necessarily politicians that carry a particular party banner, which means they're available to us as Liberals with good ideas and good organization and good opportunity. And with the majority government sitting on the horizon, we have an opportunity here to start building constituency teams right across this country that get stronger and stronger at building new people into the program, being a party of ideas and not ideology, and being a party open to the next great idea rather than the last century's failed ideas. And that's where Justin Trudeau and the Liberal team has put us. But it doesn't work without your riding associations. And so I am thanking you for the contribution you made during my by-election, and I'm here repaying that by hopefully sharing some ideas that will help strengthen the various ridings in and around the Windsor area and southwestern Ontario. The second thing I want to talk to you about is caucus. I just came back from my first caucus meeting in Edmonton. And let me tell you a couple of things about the Liberal team that is up in Ottawa already, and the one that I'll be going on to join tomorrow when I take the train from Toronto. And that's this. Justin is the real deal. Justin Trudeau was put through his paces by me when I was asked to leave behind a very safe ward seat and run federally. And I had a series of conversations over the last couple of years with Justin. I didn't know him before he became leader that well. I knew a couple of his friends. And every single time we had a conversation with Justin Trudeau, not only does he pick up where he left off in the last conversation, he's gone off and thought about what he talked about and comes back to you with even better ideas that you can build on. And it's the kind of policy development, it's the kind of political development, it's the kind of leadership, my friend, in this country is missing. It's evidence-based, it's imaginative, it's principled, it's smart, and it's articulated by a very charismatic young man who is just a joy to campaign with. We have a leader who can deliver an election for us. And you can walk into ridings like this and pick up votes where you didn't think they existed. He reinvigorates with the name Trudeau, the Trudeau Liberals, that some have strayed from the party. But he also brings a new generation of political thinkers and activists, and people who want something out of politics rather than simply a political victory. He brings that to this party. And he also has you. He has your support. And those things coming together are putting us in a position to win. And that puts us in a position to recruit great candidates. It puts us in a position to recruit great volunteers. And it puts us in a position to make sure that liberalism is back alive and well, not just in Windsor, but right across Canada. We had amazing responses in Edmonton and Calgary. The responses out west are even more profound when you consider where we're coming from in terms of electoral successes and electoral history. But we have a strong leader. What we now need to do is build programming behind that leader to make sure that we bring a strong program to the rest of the country that needs something to do. And so the portfolio that I've been asked to represent is that of urban affairs, housing credit and urban affairs. I think they split transportation away from that because I don't even own a car. That would be a liability to the transportation, especially in Windsor. Oshawa too, I guess, but the transportation credit cannot own a car. But the issue that drove me to politics and the issue that Justin asked me to work on, even before I became a candidate, was the issue of housing as it relates to cities. I know that the challenge in Windsor is jobs, and the challenge in Windsor is infrastructure, and that housing isn't as critical here as it might be in other parts of the country. But housing as a job creator, housing as a way to build a city, is fundamental to the health of Windsor. But you're not going to get the housing starts, and you're not going to get the infrastructure investment if you don't start building the economy in this part of the country. And the urban affairs piece is the one that's most important from my perspective as to what I can bring to Windsor. And that's the issue of this. Windsor is not a town, it is a city. And it needs to be a bigger city and a stronger city. We need municipal candidates from the Liberal Party to join this program of creating strong urban issues and strong urban affairs program right across the country that deals with urban infrastructure such as highways and transit, but also with water, which is a critical challenge as we face climate change. Also talks about housing and also talks about the cultural values our cities bring. But we need local representatives, I know a number are here today. We need provincial representatives, and we have a provincial government which understands, with Kathleen Lynn, the importance of building good, strong communities by building good, strong urban fabric. If we could complete the trifecta and get the urban agenda on the national scene reestablished as it was with the great Windsor politician Paul Martin, if we can get that urban agenda back on the national agenda, cities like Windsor will start to do better. It won't necessarily be an investment in housing, although housing, I think, works on so many fronts around seniors, around young people starting to get opportunities. It's not necessarily just social housing. We also know that the transportation infrastructure has not been led strongly or consistently or with any great clarity by the Harper government. The bridge is just one example. We need to strengthen the urban infrastructure as it relates to transportation as critical border crossing. And then we need to also get into the issue of water management so we take the pressure off your tax base so the investment in the social dynamics, the investment in local economic development is led by City Hall and not by people like Queen's Park. We can do that if Ottawa comes to the table as a partner with urban areas like Windsor. In this current budget, the Harper government has cut urban infrastructure funding by about 90%. 87% is the number the SCM is using. That means the critical investments, which create jobs, which also create the platform for economic development, is missing in cities right across this country. That has to change. And that will change by 2015 when Justin Trudeau takes office and we form the next majority government. And what that means for places like Windsor is that platform will exist for the creativity and the economic strengths that lie dormant in some places around this community can start to come back to life with a strong urban agenda. And so we need your voice on that issue. And that's the issue that, quite frankly, we beat the NDP on. The NDP likes to run on being the conscience of the country. They like to run as being a protest movement. What they don't do is put a platform out there that works. What they don't do is what Liberals have always done so brilliantly, which is put the table in the middle of the room, gather the supporters that you know are present on an issue around the table, and then bring new chairs to the table and new people to the table to build real consensus around where this country needs to go. We can beat the NDP by being smart about how we develop new policy, deliver that new policy, and work with our partners at provincial and urban and municipal levels. We can also beat the NDP by being clear about what we're trying to achieve here, which is prosperity for everyone. Not just for those at the low end of the social economic scale, as the NDP like to talk about, not just for those that are already doing well at the top end of the scale, as the Conservatives like to talk about, but for everybody. We can once again become the party of the middle class by talking about the issues that matter where people live, and most Canadians live in urban settings, and that's why we have to have a strong conversation about it. It bleeds into smaller communities and rural communities by having strong urban centers. It's part of the way you build a strong fabric of the country. We can do that. We need to do it very quickly. We need to lead that conversation. It's not just about organization and about being, following good leader. It's also about having that policy piece, and the urban agenda for me is a critical piece of that. And then finally, the last piece of the puzzle is fundraising. And this is never an easy conversation in a room full of people that have probably already maxed out their $1,200 to the local riding association, their $1,200 to the federal association. But one of the things we were talking about in caucus, and one of the things that the national executive of the party talked to us about, is the fact that we've had very strong fundraising numbers on the national level. We're competing with the Conservatives. We're doing very, very well. We're outstripping the NDP. We have a great war chest ready for the 2015 campaign. Where we're falling behind is at the local level. This is where your riding associations really have to get together and get creative about raising money. We need to be able to match the Conservative resources on the ground on a riding-by-riding basis if we're going to make a majority government. And so the challenge we have over the next year as Liberals is to build our local riding associations up. And again, it comes back to those things I was talking about. It comes back to using Justin's natural abilities to lead and to strengthen the conversation around why Justin Trudeau isn't ready to lead, not getting ready to lead anymore. We are prepared and are about to lead. We are in that position. It's not about getting ready, it's about being ready as we are. But the second thing is about having those policy positions enunciated in front of people and gathering that conversation into the various rooms and in meeting halls, in coffee parties that we have these conversations, and the pub nights that we've been holding in downtown Toronto, which have been extraordinarily successful with younger voters who are looking for leadership right now. If we do all these things and we build that financial capacity at the local level, we will be unbeatable in 2015, whether Stephen Harper calls the election himself, whether he resigns, whether he does it after the budget, whether he holds the law he passed, which is highly unlikely to be going next fall. This is a winnable set of conditions for us, and we're a year away from victory, but we need all hands on deck. We need all imagination present in our organization, our riding associations, and we need to get together, start working very hard to get the candidates lined up, the policy positions put in place, and to start talking about why Liberals is good for Canada, good for Windsor, and good for our families. And when we do that, we will win. And so again, I'd like to thank you for the invitation to come down here to talk to you, to give you a bit of an insight of what we talked about in Edmonton as caucus members. And I guess I can throw it back to the MCs, or I can take some questions if you like.
We have some time.
Let's take some questions. I'm much better at answering questions. Need practice the questions here. Everyone's shy.
What is anybody doing for the youth employment?
Youth unemployment is and this again is where the urban agenda and infrastructure becomes so critically important. And it's not just urban infrastructure; it's also rail and other jobs. We need a program of building a country again. In local politics, we used to say you can build a budget, but you don't necessarily build a city. The same analogy works true for countries. You can have a perfect budgetary process, and you can balance a budget, but you get from that just a balanced budget. If you build a good, strong economy, you build a good, strong country first. The economy comes with a good, strong country, and that's how you balance the budget. The infrastructure investments, whether it's on Aboriginal reserves in the north, whether it's in cities like Toronto, whether it's in cities like Windsor, the infrastructure investments are jobs. And the jobs that require more than just the work of digging the ditch and putting the pipe in and running the water system, they also involve the engineers and all the technical expertise now required to run this infrastructure. The way you get young people working again is you start building cities and countries again. We've got a government in Ottawa that has walked away from that agenda. They think jobs come with trade deals. Jobs don't come with trade deals. What comes with trade deals is a lot of negotiation. Unless you're a lawyer, you're probably out of luck. We need to start building this country back. The infrastructure is critically important. And when you do that, the young people looking for work start looking to the party that's creating the future rather than debating the past. And that's the way to get people working in. It's why housing, transportation, urban infrastructure, the promise of Justin Trudeau to put 1% of GDP towards infrastructure is such a radically important proposition because it does provide jobs right across this country to a host of young people, whether they're high skills, whether they're in trades, or whether they're in some of the more specialized sort of industry portfolios. But yeah, unemployment is critical. I understand that to be the major issue that's confronting a lot of families in Windsor. If we had more infrastructure going into the city, you'd have more people employed, and that lifts the entire economy. Yes?
Adam, as a rapidly aging baby boomer, I'm aware of the...
I wasn't where you guys age faster than the rest of us, but thank you.
Right here, I call my own the rest of the law. But the Federation of Canadian Municipalities projects that by 2036, so just over 20 years from now, the percentage of Canadians over 65 will increase by 107%. The percentage of Canadians under 65 will increase by 12%. Now, the economic effects of that for our revenue, and also the effects with regard to housing, healthcare, pensions, taxation, the rest of it, does the Liberal Party have a plan coming out on how to deal with this great tsunami that we're facing, and simply forcing?
Well, one of the reasons Kathleen Wynne won the last election was the promise of pension reform. It would be nice to have a government of Ottawa that works with the provinces, deliver these critical social programs, and strengthen the pension plans, so that that question becomes a lot easier to answer, rather than dismissing attempts to secure people's future as something which the federal government is not interested in. So that's part of it. The other issue, though, is to build that robust economy that generates the wealth to provide the programs. As I said, it's not about balancing budgets. You have to do that. We all do it in our households. Everybody, I've never seen a politician from any party ever run and promise not to balance the budget and destroy the economy. It's like running and being soft on crime. It's one of these boogeymen that the Tories throw at parties. And it frames the issue nicely for their ideology. But the reality is that as a little government's balanced budgets create surpluses and generate economic strength. That was the history of Gretchen, the history of Martin. And when the budgets got balanced, and when the budget started to grow, we invested into social programs. It was daycare, housing, and the loan accord were front and center. So you need a government that's going to be proactive about that. And part of the strategy here is prevention reform for policies. That's critically important. The second one is healthcare reform. One of the things that those of us who are active on the housing file know, and the issue as it presents itself in Toronto and Vancouver is critically important, is that when you invest in housing, you actually drive savings into the healthcare budget, and then you redeploy to better programming for people that need healthcare. It has been shown through study after study, and the latest one was the Housing First study that came out of Vancouver that some of the local senators worked on, which is that for every person that you house for mental illness in supportive housing, you save the healthcare system $26,000 per person. That's profit that rolls back into the government and then gets redeployed into the healthcare sector, and that's part of the way to build an aging population. But as we say that, we also have to take a look at how our young people are doing, whether they're entering the economy and contributing quickly. So one of the other critical issues is to get rid of their student debt, so their contribution to the economy is not paying back a bank loan, but their contribution is actually to provide an economic base for debt investment social programs, and for that investment also in a growing economy that creates the jobs that this young man talked about. One of the ways you do that is student housing. Student housing is an investment in post-secondary education that is one time, but is there for the next generation and the generation after that and the generation after that. And when you make strategic investments around university campuses, not only do you support post-secondary institutions, but you make the education cheaper for the families sending their kids off to colleges and universities. When you do that, suddenly the young people coming out of university are in a position to contribute, to strengthen the economy rather than simply pay off debt. And so the urban agenda, and this is why it's so dear to my heart, fits into these issues in so many different ways. And it shows us a way forward that again gets us back to that conversation that we need the latest liberals, which is we're going to build a country. We're going to build a stronger country. And then we're going to make sure that the investments that accrue from that strength get reinvested to tackle some of the challenges you just talked about. See, Navdeep is Navdeep Bains, a future colleague. I missed him up in Ottawa the last election, but I'll be there next election. Navdeep's there. Are there any other questions? Are we moving on? Well, thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Just one piece of housekeeping. If you own a gold Toyota license plate BKRD 689, your headlights are on, you're probably not going to go home. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Marco Antonuso, President of the Essex Federal Riding, who will introduce our next guest speaker.
Genetics. Thank you. I'd like to begin by thanking the Fulton Furlong Club for providing us this wonderful venue for this event. All the staff, thank you very much. On a personal note, I'd like to share with you a little anecdote. My mother and father, Italian immigrants to this country, actually met here at a dance 44 years ago this month. And well, I guess the rest is history, because here I stand. My fellow Liberals, it is my pleasure today to welcome the Honorable Naveep Bains to our Windsor, Essex community. I've had the pleasure of meeting and speaking with Naveep in the past, and I can tell you that we are very fortunate to have such an intelligent, accomplished, and articulate member of the Liberal family here today to share this wonderful six-riding event. He is a gentleman, scholar, and from what I hear, has a keen ability to keep our leader, Justin Trudeau, on his toes on a basketball court. Navdeep was born and raised in Toronto, where he attended York University, receiving a bachelor's in administrative studies. He continued his education in our area and community, achieving a master's in business administration from the University of Windsor in 2001. Before entering politics, Naveep worked for Ford Motor Company, where he quickly rose through the ranks from a cost analyst to a revenue analyst by developing systems for cost summaries, budgeting, and cost analysis. Naveep began his political career in 2004, being elected the MP for Mississauga, Brampton South, as a proud member of the Liberal Party. The youngest Liberal MP ever to be elected to the House of Commons, he was successfully re-elected in 2 subsequent by-elections by wide margins. As a member of the government, he was named Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister in 2005 under Windsor's own, the Right Honourable Paul Martin, and was also sworn in to the Queen's Privy Council, again becoming the youngest MP to ever gain that distinction. I did my homework, teacher. In opposition, Navdeep continued to prove himself as a force to be reckoned with, holding official opposition critic appointments in public works, government services, the Treasury Board, international trade, natural resources, small business, and tourism. Ministers quickly came to realize that when he rose to question them, that they needed to have their responses in order, or at least be ready with the prescribed talking points that were forwarded to them by the Prime Minister's office. Either one. Navdeep was also a member of a host of parliamentary committees, including access to information, privacy and ethics, finance, government operations, estimates, international trade, natural resources, public accounts, public works, and has served as the chair of the subcommittee on human rights and international development. During his time in office, he was responsible for proposing legislation from combating human trafficking to addressing mental health, as well as many other pressing issues concerning Canadians. Since 2012, Navdeep has worked as a professor at the distinguished Ted Rogers School of Business at Ryerson University, as well as being an adjunct lecturer at the University of Waterloo. Throughout his career, Navdeep has worked tirelessly in his own community, organizing youth drop-in basketball games, mentoring programs to help students with their homework, and the promotion of youth engagement in the political process, an issue close to his heart as the father of 2 young daughters, Namki and Kirpa. He has also been a strong and vocal advocate for juvenile diabetes, blood donor awareness, and is an Ontario board member of the Heart and Stroke Foundation. Navdeep is currently serving as our Ontario campaign co-chair, working to build a strong Ontario team as we head into the 2015 election. Navdeep, like all of us gathered here today, believes in the essence of the Liberal ideal, a focus on creating a society of fairness, justice, and equality for all Canadians from every walk of life and in every community. That our unique Canadian multicultural society, our differences in thought, opinion, and perspective are things that make us stronger, not divide us. And while others may wish to use the politics of negativity and division for their political gain, that the Liberal Party of today presents a positive vision where every Canadian from coast to coast to coast matters. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been my honor and privilege to introduce this extraordinary member of the Liberal team today. And I would like to ask you at this time, join me in welcoming to the Liberal family in Essex, Windsor, the next Liberal MP for the riding of Mississauga Malton, the Honourable Naveep Bains.
Now that's what you call an introduction. As promised, I've left 2 checks. One at the mail and one at your house for that very kind introduction, Michael. Thank you very much. First and foremost, can we get a round of applause for our newly elected Member of Parliament, Adam Vaughan again. The loss for City of Toronto is our game federally. I know Rob Ford is devastated. He sent me a personal note saying, oh shucks, you have to work with Adam Vaughan. But we really are fortunate and much better off, not only as a party, but as a country, to have such a distinguished individual as part of our caucus. And he spoke so eloquently about the urban agenda, and I have no doubt that he will be key in putting that forward as part of a Liberal Party platform in 2015. So thank you very much, Adam, for all the work you've done and all the work you're going to do. I want to also say that for me, coming here to Windsor is always a treat. it's a second home. I have many family and friends here. And as mentioned before, I did my MBA here at the Adet School of Business, and I spent 2 years here, and I got to really know the local community very well. And then during the leadership, I had an opportunity to meet many of you as well, and it's great to see so many familiar faces. And I want to take this opportunity to thank all the riding associations. Again, Marco, thank you for the introduction, but all the riding associations involved in organizing this event today, both at the federal and provincial level. You really are a model, a role model for all of us in Ontario and across the country of cooperation between the federal and provincial government. And so I want to take this opportunity to applaud the riding associations for Windsor West, Windsor Tecumseh, and Essex. So please, a round of applause. And I think you guys can show Mr. Harper a lot, something about cooperation, that is. Because this is something that I think he fails to understand in his capacity as a Prime Minister. Most recently, we've seen PEI in Charlottetown, the premiers coming together and talking about issues that I really believe is a reflection of poor leadership at the federal level. So in Charlottetown, just a few days ago, the premiers came together to talk about missing and murdered Aboriginal women, a national shame. And the Prime Minister, unfortunately, chooses to address that issue head-on with an inquiry. They've come together to talk about infrastructure issues. And speaking to again what Adam was saying, there is a massive deficit of infrastructure across this country. And again, the Prime Minister is unwilling to meet with them. They came together to talk about the healthcare agenda. And just when I entered the room, we were talking about an aging population and the importance of healthcare, not only now, but for future generations. And so forth and so forth. And I know that one issue that was brought up by the Quebec Premier in Ontario as well is the energy file. And clearly, the Prime Minister doesn't understand this, and he hasn't had an opportunity to meet with the Premier since the 2009 crisis. He hasn't met with them to talk about these issues. And it's that failure of leadership that's really put the spotlight on the Liberal Party, and under Justin Trudeau has demonstrated that his leadership of cooperation and working together is the model that we want to build in this federal society. So, when Stephen Harper works on sending out negative emails and attacking Justin Trudeau, he's out there meeting Canadians from coast to coast, engaging in a very optimistic, hopeful message of bringing people together. He believes wholeheartedly that Canada is a country that is a beacon of hope around the world. And it's because of our people. And he knows that this campaign in 2015 is going to be about putting Canadians first. So Harper and Stephen Harper can focus on him, but Justin Trudeau will be focusing on Canadians from coast to coast to coast. And so we're working very hard. The entire team is. Adam is being tasked with not only the urban agenda, but he'll be very much involved in our party platform, working with Gerald Butts and the rest of the caucus and our team across the country. And as many of you know, I wear many different turbans. Today I've been wearing a red one. But one of my responsibilities, aside from being a candidate for, and I would argue this with all due respect, the best riding in the country of Mississauga Malton, is being the Ontario co-chair and putting together the team. Our goal in the coming months is to have a very strong team and to have a very strong plan. And I want to take this opportunity today to speak to you in my capacity as the Ontario co-chair and talk about what we're doing in terms of our team. One of the overall objectives in Ontario, which is going to be critical for our success going forward in terms of forming government in 2015, is that out of 121 ridings in Ontario, and that's an increase of 15 more seats, we reflect Ontario's diversity in every aspect. So when I say diversity, I don't mean in the traditional sense of people from different backgrounds, but different thoughts, different experiences. People that truly understand that when we work together, bring difference of opinions together, we'll make better decisions. So we're working very hard to promote more women to enter into politics. We're working very hard to make sure we have representation from all levels of government with experiences and backgrounds. We're working very hard to make sure we have people with different professional backgrounds, working backgrounds, and so forth and so forth. And right now we're at the stage where we're about to start a nomination season, and I know some of you have some questions around it, and I'd be more than glad to answer those questions. We've conducted about 30 nomination meetings up until I would say by the end of next week we would have called 30 nomination meetings in Ontario. And our goal in the coming months up until December, going through the AGM that's taking place in Markham in a couple of weeks, is to have another 60 additional nomination meetings. We want to have 2/3 of our candidates nominated, because as much as Stephen Harper says he has a fixed election date, as much as Stephen Harper says that he's going to call the election in October, I don't necessarily trust him, and many other Canadians don't as well. So we want to make sure we're not caught off guard. We're going to work extremely hard to make sure we have the candidates in place. And so that brings me here to Windsor. And I know that we have tremendous talent in the room. I've had an opportunity to speak to some individuals who are seeking out to become candidates. And what I want to say to the riding association is your role is absolutely critical in this process. Building a team is impossible without the support of the riding associations. And so your efforts in candidate recruitment, candidate search, getting involved at the local level, of giving us feedback at the campaign level to make sure that we select the right individuals is critical. Ultimately, the membership will have the final say. So make no mistake about it, we have no intention of appointing anyone. It will be open nominations. And because there were some questions asked to me about that earlier. But more importantly, what I want to convey to you is that the nomination meeting will take place in respecting of the riding association's concerns. And what's being conveyed to me now is that we need some time to go out there and really work hard and identify some good candidates. And I understand that, I respect that very much. That message is being heard loud and clear. But at the same time, my humble feedback to you would be is, don't take too long. We want to nominate a candidate sooner rather than later. We want to make sure that we're in a position to win. We want to make sure we have a candidate that can build a team. We want to make sure we have a candidate that can knock on doors and raise money. So we are in the process of recruiting some fine candidates. Adam is one of many, many strong candidates that we have already identified and that will be nominated in the near future. And I just wanted to end off by this note by saying that I have no doubt that under Justin Trudeau's leadership as a strong central leader and a strong central campaign, with a strong local campaign, we can very easily defeat the NDP and Conservatives. And if you look at Adam Vaughan, what he did to the NDP, he decimated them in Trinity Spadina. So that is a great example for all of us, especially when we're concerned about the NDP. I think especially here to the Liberals here in Windsor, we have a track record of success. When you have a strong candidate and a strong central campaign with an effective leader, we can accomplish a lot. So with that, I'll have high hopes for Windsor. I have no doubt that we will form government in 2015, and we will have fantastic representation from Windsor West, which is the Tecumseh in Essex. So thank you very much again for inviting me, and I look forward to any questions you may have regarding the campaign and how we're building our team. Thank you very much.
Questions, or if you want to talk individually?
Yeah, and I forgot to mention as well as at a local level from the beginning of Justin's leadership, we've had an individual by the name of Collier, who is now also part of our campaign team, and he's worked very closely with the riding associations, and he's also helped me out with candidate recruitment, identifying candidates. So if you can't get a hold of me, don't hesitate to follow up with Collier as well. But again, if you have any questions, I'd be more than glad to meet with you individually. I'll look for the guy to red turban, and I look forward to our conversations. Thank you very much.
Just a couple more things. We're going to have a 50-50 draw. Does anybody need tickets? Raise your hand. Nobody else needs tickets. Okay, well, we're going to do the draw. Oh, Ken Schmidt needs tickets. Just a couple of things. I did want to make an announcement. Most of you have probably heard that the Ontario Liberal Party announced that the provincial council meeting will be held in Windsor, at Caesars Windsor, from October 17th to the 19th of this fall. So that is great news for our riding. It's going to bring the Liberal Party first and foremost into people's minds here in Windsor. It's a great way to show that even though the results of the last election down here provincially weren't what we wanted, that we still play a very important role as a region. And we will be able to host the rest of the province here in Windsor from October 17th to the 19th. So please put that in your calendars. There's going to be lots of opportunity for everybody to be involved. One of the highlights, I think, of Adam's speech was towards our municipal election. And just as we end today, I would like to acknowledge that we have a lot of candidates, potential candidates who are Liberals. And actually, if you are running for councillor, mayor, deputy mayor, school board, would you please stand up? Those who are candidates in the municipal election, please stand up. First and foremost, thank you for putting your name forward for such an important event as this next municipal election site from Ontario. Secondly, politics is grassroots, as we all know. It doesn't matter if it's municipal, it doesn't matter if it's provincial or federal. Liberals have a role to play. Our next major election is the municipal election. Those people that you see standing there, go help them. Donate money. Help them knock on doors. It doesn't matter who you support, but make sure that when October 27th comes, that people who are Liberals, people who are friendly to us and to the causes of what the Ontario and Canadian Liberal Party will stand for, are sitting in seats at the local level, because that's where things happen. So go seek out those people and please support your local Liberal candidates in municipal election. Are we done yet with the 50-50? No, we're still going. It's okay, I can keep talking. I think the other message that we heard today was the cooperation between the federal and provincial ridings. Over the next 6 months to a year, it's going to be ever so important that we rebuild, that we engage, that we bring people who are traditionally members of our party who haven't been involved in the last few years, either through dissension or just through apathy, but to bring those people back into the fold as we head towards 2015. As Navdeep said, we are heading towards a victory in 2015, but we need all boots on the ground. So when your local riding association calls and asks you for help, be it something as simple as going out and help recruiting, going to a meeting, helping with candidate recruitment, those are things that will help us on election day, no matter what it is. But things are going to happen quickly because we are heading towards an election sooner than later. I think we now have it. I'm not choosing. You can choose. So everybody, if you can give out your tickets. Adam's going to choose the winner. Okay, 746053.
Early.
That's what's on my glasses on, so I can try. 746053, back. We have a winner. Congratulations. Again, thank you very much. Thank you very much for attending, taking time out of your Labor Day weekend. A special thanks to Navdeep. I still can't read that. It's not big enough. A special thanks to Navdeep and to Adam Vaughan for coming and spending time away from your family and friends all along the weekend. We very much appreciate it. Everybody, it's like being a minister preaching in church. I know we're preaching to the converted here. But get people involved. You're here because you want to be involved. You're here because you want to be a difference. I'm proud to be a Liberal. As we head towards the municipal elections and the next federal elections, get involved, become active. Let's make sure we win this thing. Thank you, everybody.